Sometimes the mature choice does not feel peaceful at first. It feels lonely. You stop chasing someone who keeps confusing you. You say no, without explaining yourself for an hour. You make a decision, without needing everyone else's approval. You sit with your feelings, instead of sending a message just to make the loneliness go away. And somehow, you do not feel powerful. You feel quiet, a little empty, a little alone. This is confusing because we often imagine emotional maturity as something calm and clean. We imagine it changes everything. You no longer need reassurance. Silence no longer unsettles you. And when life feels heavy, you no longer wish someone would simply come closer. But real emotional maturity is not cold. It is not the absence of need. Sometimes it begins with a strange kind of grief. Not because you no longer need love, but because you are letting go of an old way of feeling safe. You did the healthier thing. So why does it feel like you lost something? The real question is different. Why can becoming emotionally mature feel lonely at first? And how do you stay with yourself without closing your heart?
For a long time, safety may have meant someone else. Someone who replied quickly, someone who reassured you, someone who chose you, someone who told you what to do, someone who made your emotions feel smaller. Maybe you never called it safety. You just thought you needed a text back, a clear answer, a sign that you were not being abandoned. Someone who could make the feeling go away. And that is human. We are not born emotionally self-contained. When we are young, other people help us understand what we feel. Someone has to calm the storm before we learn how to calm it ourselves. Someone has to hold us before we discover what it feels like to hold ourselves. The psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott believed that being emotionally held is one of the foundations of healthy development, not only physically, emotionally. A child needs a world where feelings can be met, named, and survived. That is how we slowly learn that emotions do not have to destroy us. But adulthood asks something harder. It does not ask you to stop needing people. It asks you to stop needing one person to become the entire place where your emotional life is held. That is why maturity can feel lonely, because the old kind of safety no longer works in the same way. You cannot always wait for someone else to decide before you move. You cannot always make another person's attention the proof that you are okay. And when that old safety begins to fade, even if it was never very stable, you can still miss it. That does not mean you made the wrong choice. It may mean you are grieving the old way you survived. Sometimes maturity feels lonely because the old way of feeling safe no longer works.
There is a difference between support and rescue. Emotional maturity begins when you can feel that difference. Imagine calling a friend after a hard day. You are tired, you feel hurt. You do not want to be alone with your thoughts. There is nothing immature about that. There is nothing weak about needing comfort. Support sounds like this. Can you stay with me while I move through this? Can you listen while I find my way back to myself? Rescue asks for something else. It says, can you make this feeling go away? Can you tell me exactly what to do so I do not have to choose? Can you carry this because I do not know how to carry it yet? Both needs make sense, especially when you feel overwhelmed, but they are not the same. Support helps you return to yourself. Rescue asks someone else to take your inner life off your shoulders. That difference matters because many people confuse emotional maturity with needing no one. They think maturity means never asking, never leaning, never being affected. But that is not maturity. It is emotional shutdown, wearing the clothes of maturity. Maturity is not the absence of need. It is a different relationship to need. You can ask for comfort without asking someone to erase your discomfort. You can be held without handing over your whole center. Rescue often feels warmer at first. It brings quick relief. But it also leaves your own inner steadiness underdeveloped. Support may feel less dramatic, but it helps you come back to yourself. And if you are not used to that, it can feel lonely. Because someone is standing beside you, but they are not living your inner life for you. One reason emotional maturity can feel lonely is that stability does not always feel good right away. Sometimes, it simply feels quiet. You are no longer checking your phone every few minutes. You stop trying to decode someone else's mood. You stop turning every silence into a crisis. And you stop chasing intensity just to feel connected. You expect peace. Instead, you feel empty. That is the moment many people begin to wonder, if this is healthier, why does it feel so flat? If this relationship is stable, why do I feel less alive? If I made the mature choice, why do I miss the chaos? The body often recognizes what is familiar before it recognizes what is good. If intensity has been your proof of connection, calm can feel like absence. If anxiety has always been part of love, steadiness can feel boring. If chasing has always been part of attachment, not chasing can feel like not caring. That does not mean chaos was love. It means your nervous system learned to associate emotional movement with emotional importance. The waiting, the relief, the conflict, the repair, the constant search for signs. Those experiences can make a relationship feel alive, even while it is making you less stable. So when you choose something steadier, there is less noise for your mind to hold on to, less urgency, less proof, less emotional drama. And without all that noise, you are left with yourself. That is the lonely part. Not because nothing is there, but because the old stimulation is gone. Emotional maturity asks you to stop confusing intensity with intimacy. It asks you to notice the difference between a connection that activates you and one that actually supports you. Quiet is not always abandonment. Sometimes, quiet is simply what life feels like when it is no longer organized around emotional emergencies. There is another reason emotional maturity can feel lonely. You begin to realize that your inner life cannot fully belong to someone else. Your feelings still matter. So does your pain. What happened to you matters, and the way people treated you should never be minimized. This is not about pretending you were never hurt. It is not about excusing people who broke your trust. And it is not about saying everything was your fault. But no one else can take over your emotional life. People can affect you. They can support you. They can hurt you. They can misunderstand you.
But they cannot live your next day for you. They cannot choose your boundaries. They cannot decide what you will do with your pain. and they cannot build the part of you that learns to stand again. This is where maturity can feel very lonely, because when someone has hurt you, staying focused on what they did can feel like the only way to stay connected to what happened. Sometimes, blame can feel like connection. If someone else is completely responsible for how you feel, then you never have to carry the responsibility for your response. You can keep waiting for them to understand, to apologize, to change, to give you the missing piece that finally lets you feel okay. Sometimes repair matters. Sometimes accountability matters. But even then, they cannot do all the work. Real growth happens quietly. You feel anxious, but you pause before asking for reassurance again. You feel guilty, but you do not immediately abandon your boundary. You feel hurt, but you do not give the other person total control over your recovery. You feel uncertain, but you do not ask everyone else to choose your life for you. This is not coldness. It is the slow return of your own agency. And agency can feel lonely at first. Your feelings deserve care, but they cannot all become someone else's responsibility. The goal is not to stop needing people. That is not emotional maturity. It is simply another form of protection. You still need comfort. You still need warmth. You still need to feel seen. You still need people who can listen without treating your pain like an inconvenience. None of that is immature. Need is not the problem. Self-abandonment is. Psychologists sometimes call this differentiation. In plain language, it means you can stay close without losing yourself. You can care without collapsing. You can listen without carrying everything. You can love without disappearing. And you can need someone without making them the only reason you feel real. Many people only know two ways to relate. Either they need someone so much that they lose themselves, or they protect themselves so completely that no one can really reach them. The first feels warm but unstable. The second feels safe but empty. Emotional maturity is the harder third way, to stay open without handing yourself away. You might notice it in love. You want reassurance, but you also become curious about why silence feels so threatening. You want closeness without giving up every boundary just to keep it. You might notice it with family. You care what they think, but you no longer let their disappointment be the final judge of your life. Or you might notice it in friendship. You let people support you, but you do not quietly expect them to be there every time your inner world starts to shake. Mature connection may feel less dramatic than rescue, but it is more honest. It lets love be a relationship, not a way to escape yourself. Emotional maturity does not remove your need for other people. It changes the way you need them. The loneliness of emotional maturity is often part of a transition, not a permanent identity. You are caught between two ways of living. The old version of you may not have felt okay unless someone else made things okay. The new version is learning to stay with discomfort, but it still does not feel natural. So for a while, you may feel suspended, no longer fully dependent, not fully steady yet, no longer willing to lose yourself the way you once did. but not yet fully at home in yourself. That in-between place can feel lonely, because the old patterns had people in them, even when they were painful, even when they were unstable. They were familiar. The new way may bring more peace, but less immediate reassurance, more self-respect, but less intensity, more clarity, but fewer places to hide. So be careful about the story you tell yourself. Do not turn a temporary loneliness into a permanent identity. Do not tell yourself, this is what maturity is. I will always be alone now. You are not becoming someone who cannot connect. You are becoming someone who can stay connected without disappearing. Inner steadiness is not built by one good decision. It grows through small moments, when you stay with yourself long enough to discover that you can survive your own feelings. You feel sad, and you do not immediately run from it. You feel afraid, and you do not hand your fear to someone else. You feel uncertain, and you make a choice without needing everyone else's approval. You feel lonely, and you do not use the wrong person as medicine. Slowly, something begins to change. Silence becomes less threatening. A boundary feels less like loss. The quiet feels less empty. Not all at once, but enough to realize the loneliness was never the destination. It was part of the transition. So how do you hold yourself without closing your heart? Not by pretending you are fine, not by becoming unreachable, not by convincing yourself that you should not need anyone. That is not self-holding. It is self-protection. Self-holding begins with being honest with yourself. You begin by admitting, I am hurt. I am afraid. I want reassurance. I want someone to make this easier. And then you pause long enough to ask yourself, what kind of help am I really looking for? Am I asking for support or for rescue? Am I trying to connect or trying to escape my own feelings? Am I becoming more mature or simply more unavailable? These questions are not meant to shame you. They are meant to help you come back to yourself. Because sometimes you really do need to reach out. Another person's presence can help you breathe and remind you that you are not alone. That is part of being human. But sometimes, reaching out is really a way of leaving yourself, a way of asking someone else to decide, to soothe, to reassure, to carry, to make you feel real. Emotional maturity is learning to notice the difference, and then to choose with more honesty. Sometimes that means calling a friend. Sometimes it means writing the message and waiting before you send it. Sometimes it means taking a walk before asking for reassurance. Sometimes it means saying, I need support, instead of creating a crisis so someone will come closer. Holding yourself does not mean holding everything by yourself. It means staying with yourself while someone else is beside you. It means allowing someone to care for you without making them responsible for your entire emotional survival. The goal is not to stop needing people. It is to let people support you without asking them to save you. Emotional maturity can feel lonely because it asks you to let go of an old fantasy. The fantasy that someone else will always know what you need, that someone else will make your feelings disappear, that someone else will choose your life for you, that someone else can become the place where you never have to meet yourself. Letting go of that fantasy hurts, even when it is necessary. even when it leads to healthier relationships. But the goal is not to become untouchable. You were never meant to become someone who needs no one, someone who never reaches, never softens, never lets love matter. That is not maturity, and it is not strength. It is simply another way of protecting yourself from needing anyone. Real emotional maturity is quieter than that. It is being able to say, I need people, I need comfort, I need connection, I need to be seen. And at the same time, I cannot make another person responsible for my entire inner life. You can be held without being rescued. You can be loved without disappearing. You can be supported without handing away your center. So if emotional maturity feels lonely right now, do not rush to believe that this loneliness is your future. It may simply be the space between the old way you survived and the new way you are learning to live. You are not growing so you can need no one. You are growing so you can need people without abandoning yourself. And that kind of maturity may feel lonely at first, but it does not end in isolation. It ends in a different kind of connection where you are finally present too.